Well, MJ and Victor, a lot of questions here after this apparent case of friendly fire, according to U.S. Central Command, left one U.S. fighter jet downed, and so many questions early Saturday morning. What we know is this U.S. Navy F-18 fighter jet was operating from the USS Harry S. Truman, and it was mistakenly fired upon by the USS Gettysburg. Now, when that jet was shot down, both pilots were able to eject safely, but one crew member sustained minor injuries. Of course, so many questions now. This incident is now under investigation by the U.S. military, and questions about how this could have happened, as CENTCOM emphasizes this was not the result of hostile fire. Of course, this incident took place over the Red Sea, where the U.S. has moved warships and fighter jets and other assets in recent months amid ongoing tensions in the Middle East. And in a sign of the activity in this area, this incident comes the exact same day as the U.S. carried out airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. Now, the U.S. struck a missile storage facility and a command and control facility in the capital of Sana'a. And during that operation, the U.S. also shot down one-way attack drones and an anti-ship cruise missile, according to CENTCOM. Now, those attacks also involved U.S. Navy F-18 fighter jets and U.S. Air Force assets, according to CENTCOM. But two U.S. military officials tell CNN that this downed fighter jet we have talked about in this incident was not a part of those strikes. MJ and Victor.
Betsy Kleinforth at the White House, thank you so much. Let's bring in now CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Colonel, good morning to you. The investigation will determine how this mistake happened, but typically, how do these types of mistakes happen?
Yeah, Victor, good morning. One of the big things here is that you have a very big airspace that they're dealing with. And in that airspace, there's a lot of activity, especially when there's a carrier battle group active like there is in the Red Sea with the USS Harry Truman. Now, which is where the F-18 came from. So when you are in a zone like this, where there is combat happening at one end of the Red Sea, and then there are other flight patterns that the folks on the USS Gettysburg, the sailors on the USS Gettysburg have to deal with, it can be pretty easy to mistake targets from one to the other. In other words, is one a friendly target, or is one an adversarial or a potential adversarial target? So what the investigation is going to look at is what the people, the sailors that were manning the positions on the USS Gettysburg, what they saw, what they believed was coming toward them, if in fact the aircraft was heading toward them, why they saw it as a potential hostile aircraft, and why they fired. So this is going to be a critical piece, and in these situations, what they saw, what they believe to be the case, is going to be a key part of that. What the radar picture looked like for them is also going to be a factor, and of course they'll need to answer why they didn't deflict the aircraft properly.
And what we also learned is that this fighter jet was mistakenly hit, and then the two Navy pilots ejected from their jet. I mean, is this how the ejection system, if you can call it that, is that how it's supposed to work? Or typically, would you see something like this coming, and then before you're hit, you're supposed to get yourself out of the fighter jet?
Yeah, MJ, one of the key things here is that pilots always stay with their aircraft until they can't maneuver the aircraft. So what basically happened in this particular case is not atypical for a situation like this. In essence, what you have is a missile coming toward you. If you can evade that missile, you're going to do everything you can to not only save yourself, but save the aircraft. If your aircraft gets hit, that's when you eject. And that's exactly what these pilots, these crew members followed in this particular case, those procedures.
Colonel, should we have expected that there would have been some opportunity to communicate between the Gettysburg and these two pilots before this happened, that they could have identified themselves?
Yes, absolutely. And that's also going to be one key aspect of the investigation, why the crew on the USS Gettysburg did not see this aircraft as a friendly aircraft. So there was supposed to be communication between not only with the pilots and the aircraft carrier, in essence, their controllers in this case, but also with all the other naval assets in the region. And so what was communicated to the USS Gettysburg is going to be a critical part of what this investigation finds. Whether or not that communication was clear, whether it was something that they mistook for something else, and why they mistook it for for a potential hostile target. That's the kind of thing that is going to be part of the investigation. So yes, communication, what it was, how it was lacking. If that's the case, that's going to be part of the investigation.
Colonel, I was struck before when you were saying that it's actually, easy enough to mistake targets in this fashion. I mean, how much activity there has been in the Red Sea basically since October 7th, heightened hostilities, the back and forth. Was it actually just a matter of time, in your view, until we had an incident like this, given how much activity we've seen there?
Yeah, it's you want to give the crews in this area, in a very tense area of the world, a lot of credit for doing what they do. And we certainly would expect, when you look at the kinds of accident rates that the Navy and the Air Force have in situations like this, that something like this could happen. But the procedures that are in place within the U.S. Navy and within all aspects of the U.S. military, especially in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, are actually pretty extensive. They're pretty tight procedures, and they're designed to avoid incidents like that. And when a situation like this occurs, obviously something went wrong, and whether or not you would have expected something like this, that depends what exactly went wrong. But MJ, when you look at the totality of this, it is certainly clear that an accident like this could certainly happen. And, we are lucky that it hasn't happened before.
Yeah, that's interesting in the conversation about communication. I mean, when miscommunication results in an F-18 being shot down and 2 pilots ejecting, of course, CENTCOM tells us. But when these types of miscommunications happen and they don't reach this level of severity, I mean, how common is that?
Yeah, that each crew is going to on each ship is going to probably have different statistics when it comes to that. But yes, it is something that does happen, where at first people think that there's an incoming target to them, and you have to think these aircraft are moving at a very high speed, and when you are sitting in a guided missile cruiser and you're looking at what is happening on your radar scopes and you see what is coming toward you, the potential for misidentification is actually quite high, and that's where training comes in. They look at the types of aircraft, they look at their characteristics, they look at the airspeed, they look at those kinds of things and use that to help determine whether or not what they're seeing on the radar is accurate. And of course, they also look at the intelligence picture and try to deconflict with that. So these kinds of things, do happen, and misidentifications are very often corrected just in time before an incident like this, as bad as this is, before an incident like this does happen.
All right, Colonel Cedric Leighton, thank you so much. Happy holidays.